So we, so these Buddhist monks, by saying, look, we take them into our monasteries, we are bringing them into our beds, we wash them, we try to bring their temperature down when they have got these horrible fevers that they are suffering from. But they are normal people. You don't need to be afraid of them, right? And they don't need to hide. And as such, they were modeling for society in general to be more acceptable of people who had largely been thrown outside, marginalized, and left alone. So that way, that's how this organization, again, Buddhism, there's nothing in the holy writing of Buddhism or as anything or any kind of mention of AIDS or anything like that. But it shows the flexibility of an organization, of a civil society organization, to change what it was designed for, maybe in a reflection also being that of service, right? And actually serving a public health function. The second group that is out there is, of course, the women's rights groups. The women's rights groups were going through the brothel regularly because there was a lot of violence and objectification of the women and poverty, and again, they were uh, proper initially, simply they were concerned with the rights of the sex workers. But when they went there, they saw really, the major concern for these sex workers was HIV and the deadly diseases that was spreading. And so they became much more educated, and then rather than simply talking about mobilizing, they became very educated. And these women's rights groups in how to combat HIV/AIDS in the first place, and they became many times the teachers and right and the ones who were bringing out the condoms and things like that and putting pressure on the owners of brothel um, to, if they are going to continue with these brothels, to at least promote safe sex practices in those brothels. Final thing that I want us to consider is the, again, the unique nature of civil society. Civil society may be a far more successful than political parties at adjusting to new circumstances and purposes. Thinking about the monks there, but also let's say that the Catholic Church in Poland or in Eastern Europe, which was just designed first simply, to um, for religious purpose, but then also became a place where people could gather to mobilize against the communist government. Activist groups can also be very grassroots. People tend to trust them sometimes more than than a politician, and as such, they can be very effective in getting people to care about something. But you got to keep in mind the chapter really points out that the governments are often open to having civil society and interest groups work. They might reject the assistance of such groups offer because such groups and their existence and the type of policy that they are pushing for might contest the government's own ideology. Keep in mind, let's say if you are a communist country that says, well, should be the spread of to everyone, and there is a group that's talking about poor. That's very embarrassing for a communist country to know that there are poor people in the society. So the existence of group that provides food for hungry, mm, not so good, right? they would be not so happy about that. Secondly, these groups might simply threaten the legitimacy of the government, right? If there is a government which is authoritarian government, you might have leaders of religion calling for monks to fight for the rights of the people and greater democracy, and that can go against the goals of authoritarian government. Uh, so, so that's again a problem, and the reason why many of these Southeast Asian countries that are more authoritarian, civil society has not been that impactful because government simply uh, does not want them to operate and to work with them.